Hey, what's going on, everybody? David Noe with Speak Easy HR, presented by Payroll Partners. It is November 4th, episode 13. Start of November, which I couldn't ask for a better guest, better topic to kick off this month of men's mental health awareness. So I've got live on LinkedIn and YouTube for people who are watching. We have it streaming, so the chat is open. If you want to comment where you're watching, any questions along the way, please chime in. We love the engagement with our audience. So Michael Towers with HR Avenger, welcome. How are you today, Michael?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me, David.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked for a while. So when I first started thinking about topics to talk about and guests to bring into the show, you were on my list. And the entire time you said, yeah, when you're ready, I'm ready. So it's been, like I said, several months back to earlier this year when we first started interacting with messaging and just we got connected. And I said, hey, here's my idea of a podcast. And you've got a lot of experience with speaking on some of these topics that are really near to your heart. And you have some personal stories that you'll probably get into, but certainly happy to have you on finally. And like I said, couldn't ask for a better guest to start this month off. So I've got a couple of things that I want to go through. First off, I have a really exciting announcement. Over the last week or so, I've been building out a website. So all of my previous episodes, I have a blog. I've got some clips from different episodes that I've had, and also where to go into the podcast platforms to find previous episodes. So speakeasyhr.com is live. So please check it out. Any feedback, I would love to hear it. If you are open to being a guest in the future, I am planning out next year into next summer. So I've got an amazing guest of lineup. I have amazing guests lined up between now and next summer already. But again, if you are interested in coming on and have a topic that you're passionate about, please check it out and connect with me. So again, the chat is open and we are going to be doing the envelope icebreaker game, which had fun doing this. I gave you the questions, Michael, when we first were interacting. So I want to introduce you a little bit with, quickly what you have been working on in the past. So you are a top-rated SHRM presenter, mental health counselor, leadership speaker. You have teach the leadership principles, self-care strategies to unleash potential, personal potential. You flex with empathy muscles to help leaders reverse the deficit in their workplace by showing leaders how to create a healthy, supportive culture. Employees engage positively, impacting the bottom line. You are the go-to source for employee engagement and retention. Your presentations are engaging, entertaining, and vulnerability creates genuine connection. You seek to identify organizational challenges and teach practical solutions. You challenge audiences to take action and level up their organizations. So you are a mental health trainer and life coach. You have an incredible story of resiliency, perseverance, and determination, which I cannot wait to get into. Because of your personal struggle with mental health illness, you are passionate about your stories to help everyone who wants to rewrite theirs. You are morally, ethically, and occupationally obligated to take action and support hurting people. Unfortunately, many aren't trained to support their coworkers. So you train organizations on mental health first aid to support coworkers in crisis. So I wanted to just bring all of that up because I think it is super important. So, Michael, if you just want to tell a little bit about yourself beyond what I just said, and then we'll get into some of the other things. So I will hand it over to you, sir.
All right, that's great. Yeah, I mean, you covered a lot of it. Of course, those are all the highlights. I think I have been in recovery for 25 years. I have been a mental health and addiction counselor for 22 years. When I decided I wanted to be a speaker, and I spoke for years in the recovery space, many different organizations, venues, hurting people. But when I decided to try to pursue it as a mission, I started in colleges because it took me 17 years to graduate college. I earned my degrees after a lot of dropping out, a lot of failure. And when I got my diploma, I remember it's this accomplishment that I couldn't wait to help people accomplish what I just accomplished. So I think, being a subject matter expert is important in the speaking, world. And what I can tell you is that I've suffered with mental illness my whole life. One of 3 serious mental illnesses. And if you look at the statistics for people like me, the outlook is precarious at best. But I've gotten up every time that I've fallen down, and I continue to fight to be the best, most healthiest person that I can be. And as a result, I've accomplished, things that I could never believe I've accomplished. My life is beyond my wildest dreams. And for that, David, I'm a 100% expert.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really incredible. And I did wear this shirt in my previous episode about mental health, but I did want to just wear it again because I think it's important. So if you can't read it, is everyone is fighting the battle you know nothing about. And this shirt actually is from a company that I found. I put it up on as a QR code. So it's Alex and Andy petbandanas.com. They've got a line of different shirts, t-shirt, sweatshirts, bandanas for pets. So this daughter uncle kind of collaboration team started making these shirts. So he makes all these, he handwrites these really impactful quotes on these shirts. So if you've never heard of them, I know they're very popular on TikTok. That's actually where I found their shirts. So anyway, I wear this anytime mental health is talked about. So wanted to bring that up as we got into this because it's, again, mental health awareness for men is November. So like I said, great time to get into this topic. So, all right, before we jump into your topic, Michael, I want to play the world famous envelope icebreaker game. So 1 through 15, you have the questions. If you have a number that you want to call out, I will open it up and see what we got.
All right, let's go with number 1.
Number 1. You're the first person to pick number 1. All right. Who is the greatest rapper of all time?
We talked about this. I personally thought the questions that you were offering up were numbered, and this was an inside thing between you and I, that I would pick the number and it would reveal the question. So that is not the question that I picked, but as I shared earlier in an email, it is Rakim from Eric B. and Rakim, rapper in the mid 80s, early 90s. He would be the best rapper, technical rapper of all time. Okay.
Very good. You want to pick one more? Because there's a lot of questions in here no one's picked. You got another number you want to pick?
Let's go. Since I have no idea, we'll go with 7.
7. Yeah, I at least give everyone the questions beforehand, but where they're at in the numbers. Okay. When you were in grade school, what did you want to be when you grew up?
That was number 1 on the list, and one of the questions I definitely wanted to answer. It's funny. I've spoke the last 4 years, presented to primarily HR professionals, and I talk about that time when we, as an exercise, did a test to try to discover what we would be good at, what our career choice could be. And, as I've spoke to HR professionals, I thought, was anybody sitting there sophomore, junior year of high school going, I want to be an HR professional? And honestly, if you were, because I know I saw the list of people listening, a lot of HR professionals, you probably were also an RA in college. Just fun killers, just always catch me at 2 a.m. trying to sneak back in the dorm. That was my idea of what HR was for the longest time, by the way. Hall police. But I've fallen in love with HR pros since. I wanted to be an advocate for Native Americans, bottom line. Every movie that I watched, what I learned in school, I was a big I'd say fan. The civil rights movement really moved me because I just couldn't figure why the levels type of hatred and atrocity dictated by a culture or a color. And that's always kind of been my deal, and an advocate for Native Americans. And I'll tell you, my last year counseling in California in 2017, I got a full-blooded Apache as a client. He had done 15 years in San Quentin, and he was as difficult as can be. Never trusted a male authority figure, and I'm happy to say that I broke through in his time in treatment, and consider him someone I'm really proud of.
Wow, that's very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Man.
You're welcome.
Okay, lightning round. What was your first job with taxes deducted out of your paycheck?
Oh man, good question. I would say I'll just make it fun and interesting. I spent 25 years in the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, which is a union in the entertainment industry.
Okay.
And my first paid paycheck at 16 years old was working the James Brown concert at Pier 6 Concert Pavilion.
There you go. Very cool. Very cool. All right. So again, for those who are chiming in and watching, it's a little after, it's about 2:15 Eastern time. So the chat is open on YouTube and LinkedIn. If you have a question for Michael, definitely put it in the chat, because you might be thinking of the same question someone else is who are watching. So all previous episodes of Speakeasy HR will be on the website, speakeasyhr.com. There's a new blog, past episodes, and all kinds of clips. So be sure to tune into that. I've got a couple of quick questions for our audience who are involved in their payroll. Does your current payroll provider hog your time? Do you have a porky payroll process? If so, it's time to contact us at Payroll Partners to see how we can help you. Visit and learn more at payrollpartners.net. So every year, Michael, we go to SHRM conferences, mostly state. This year we had the pig as a little giveaway. Last year we had a cow, so don't have a cow. So every year we have a fun animal. So those are just the most recent, but this was a hit, especially at Kentucky and Ohio SHRM. So if you were at one of those conferences and you stopped by our booth, hopefully you've got one. All right. So for those who have not watched this show before, maybe you're new because you follow Michael and want to listen into his topic. This podcast that I started over the summer and all of the ideas that I had, I really wanted people to come on and bring topics that are super passionate to them in their work, in what they do, and how it's related to their upbringing, their previous career path, and all of the experiences they've had, because everybody's perception and everyone's experiences are a little different. So, you know, your topic being something that you've always told me about since we first, connected, Michael, was on mental health, and really just finding a way to bring that out in somebody when they feel like there is no end in sight. So you brought up the Limitless leadership, silencing the lies and BS. And so again, everybody that comes on this show will have a perception of, or really an understanding of why that topic means so much to them. So going through what you have talked about and going to SHRM conferences and everything, I'm sure along the way, every single one has been a little different, but why did you bring this topic? Can you explain that a little bit, and we'll dive into it from there?
Yeah. The way my mental health journey has evolved, I was sentenced by a judge to psychiatry. I was looking at 33 years in jail, and all of it was suspended, but I had to see a psychiatrist with bipolar. And that judge had a roommate in college that got into a shootout with police outside their dorm. So needless to say, I ran in to the right judge. And, psychiatry was medication management. It was, checking in around that with a psychiatrist. As I look at some of the things that I've struggled with and an aim to be a better man, a better husband, a better person, therapy is something that I've done a lot of therapy. And it wasn't until it was right around 2019, the end of 2019, I was doing SHRM BLBM. I was doing it from the audiovisual side. I was a project manager. And I just got in an argument with a disgruntled coworker that was loud enough that SHRM attendees could hear it outside the office. And my supervisor came to me, and he came down on me pretty hard. And and the opportunity, I wanted to be perfect. And it went so well up to that moment. And we're, an hour away from the conference ending. And I had these messages going on that, you screwed up, you failed, you're nothing. These are the messages that I carried when I took a radio call to go help a SHRM presenter that was a keynote in another room. And when I met Mary Shetty, who's a division director for SHRM, my dad had fallen down the stairs 3 hours before and broke some ribs. I would lose him to addiction 3 weeks later. Mary's brother had died an hour before I met her. And I, just kind of mentioned that I want to use my story to help people with mental illness. And she made a phone call. She's ready to do a keynote, right? She's not prepping. She made a phone call. And that person she called, Felix Massey, introduced me to Kathy Harris, the director of SHRM Speakers Bureau. And within a month, I was listed on Speakers Bureau, not because I was a corporate speaker, but because Mary Shetty wouldn't take no for an answer. And, my love for HR, started in that moment because I understood that HR does the most, they care the most, and most often they're overlooked the most and burnt out the most. And in helping HR professionals just have a true desire, when I say I was morally, occupationally, and obligated to help hurting people as a part of my job as a counselor, but HR professionals aren't obligated. Well, maybe obligated, but not occupation. It's not part of the SHRM, BASC or BAC or whatever it is now. And so a lot of people that desire to help people, but really didn't know how. And then in 2020, I went on a retreat. And in that retreat, I went through a weekend and I didn't know where we were going. This retreat was like Fight Club. All the mentors didn't tell me what it was. I just showed up. And on Saturday evening, I confronted the wounds of my past, the wounds of my childhood, the wounds that caused the voices that are in my head that I'm not good enough, I'm worthy, I'm not deserving of success. Why try? You're going to fail anyway. And I confronted those bullies and pushed them out of my life forever. And the first 2 years of teaching leadership principles to help HR professionals and workplaces improve mental health conditions was kind of the way to become a corporate speaker. But in the last 2 years, it has been all about confronting the limiting beliefs that hold us back and to move into a possible mindset where anything is possible. And David, I did it out of an overflow of my love for HR professionals. And it's not as sexy as the talks the first 2 years, because when I watch people start to confront their trauma in real time in my audiences, I could take a safer route, but I'm willing to take a risk to help the people and specifically HR professionals.
Yeah. Wow. So that was one of my questions back to, because, reading some of your bio on your website, HR Avenger, I saw, and I'll pull this up, and if anybody is watching, so hravenger.com is where you have all of your speaking engagement topics, which you have a list of them. You have a workbook out there. You've got some amazing content that you're adding probably over time as you go. But, looking at what you dealt with growing up, I mean, it didn't start like when you were in your 20s. It was back when you were young, and that was obviously at a different time in our world. Now it's like, I'm sure there's more and more kids that are battling the same problems you did.
Hi, I'm Stephen Rothberg.
And I'm Jeanette L.I.E.s.
And together, we're the co-hosts of the High Volume Hiring Podcast.
Are you involved in hiring dozens or even hundreds of employees a year? If so, you know that the typical sourcing tools, tactics, and strategies, they just don't scale.
Yeah. Our bi-weekly podcast features news, tips, case studies, and interviews with the world's leading experts about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to high volume hiring.
Make sure to subscribe today.
But it wasn't as common maybe back then as you thought, that you just didn't fit in. You had to go to a counselor. You had all of these, things. And I had to go through some of that with my parents getting divorced and going to counseling. And so I have had that. But now it's just, I feel like more people are talking about it. There's better conversations. There's better resources, but there's still a whole lot more that can be done. And you're just kind of scratching the surface with what really HR professionals can use as a resource. So it's incredible that you have brought this all to light. And so, I think what I want to find out from you, and I'm sure there's some other folks out there that might be watching that have these questions, but when myself, anybody in an HR role, and they are trying to find the right path to supporting their team members with mental health without knowing what everybody's battling, like my shirt says, everyone's fighting a battle you know nothing about. And so you, Michael, might be working at my company and I might know nothing about what you have going on. So how can you kind of tell HR professionals that really want to focus on this as a priority within their organization, what are some of the first steps that they can really take, to really make it a focus and try to find the best way to approach it and make an impact within their organization?
All right. Great question. And I'm just going to push back a bit. I want to answer your question the way you asked it, but this transition into a new type of presentations is after realizing that so many HR professionals are tasked with the job to raise morale or do something with mental health. Like, we've got these issues and people hurting, and leadership, puts it on HR to plan something, and then leadership doesn't show up, and leadership buy-in is a thing. And again, my love for HR now, it's about putting you on a pathway to eradicate the fear, doubt, and shame that's holding you back, and to teach you steps so that you can be you're the best, most healthiest person, right? And so that's number one, right? Again, you all do the most. You all have private lives and plenty of things to do.
Yep.
We only have so much time, but great leadership means leading yourself greatly. Self-care is vital, yet we sacrifice it constantly for other things. And those things end up paying the price, right? Yeah. By us not taking care of ourselves. So I can certainly talk about, identifying hurting people by keeping your head up and paying attention to those around you so that you can identify who's hurting. You can intervene. I can teach you motivational interviewing skills and in ways that you can act out of them to show that people are heard and valued, which is really all anybody wants across the spectrum. But only 1 in 4 people have not only 1 in 4 people have a serious, or not a serious, but let's say 1 in 4 people have a diagnosable mental health condition. Yep. But 4 out of 4 of us have mental health. And we have got to all be mindful of the impact stress, unhealthy relationships, past trauma, negative experiences in our environment has on our mental health. So we've got great leadership is an inside out job. And yes, I can teach you how to go into work and do the deal, but are you living in a way that's, are you caring for yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually?
Yeah. One of our viewers on LinkedIn, Lucy L.I.E.s, she said, I'm a work-related PTSD survivor. Do you ever see that in the workplace?
I think all of us have trauma.
Yeah.
All of us. Now, as far as, utilizing that in the workplace, I mean, so often we're told to take our problems and stuff them down and show up on the job and be okay. That, first of all, that paradigm has got to be blown up. The more we speak up and come around, rally around each other, and I challenge leaders to do this, to speak up about the things that they struggle with, the kind of the me too. Oh, you struggle with that? Me too. And so much can be built from that. But listen, my dad drove my sister and I around drunk all the time. We knew what kind of day it would be if he ended up at the liquor store at 6 a.m. and put a bottle of gin underneath his seat. And he wrecked the car with my sister in it. Fortunately, her screaming had him correct the car in time to just sideswipe the telephone pole. I remember my dad waking up the next morning with windshield glass in his shoes. And the first thing he thought was, how can I get myself out of this and not my sister? I would have discounted trauma, like to those relegated to serious, like military experiences or things like that. And when I met my wife, who is an Army veteran, and I'd watch her jump out of her seat if I dropped a fork, trauma is real. My dad driving me around drunk was traumatic, and we need to own that trauma. And again, for that person, would you say her name was?
Lucy.
Lucy, find ways to speak up about your trauma. There's oversharing. As a counselor, I don't overshare, but I can certainly say some things have happened to me when I was younger, and they've affected me in this way. And if there's anything that you have that you want to talk about, I'm here if you ever want to talk. That's how you change workplaces.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of people in HR, depending on their capacity, they might be viewed as more of a support role, dealing with whatever it might be from an employee standpoint, having those conversations, difficult conversations, and trying to help managers navigate through that. And so, it just depends on the HR role that individual has within the organization, because they might have an EAP program. I think those are underutilized. They've been 100%.
offered. 7 out of 10 people, 7% of people end up using their EAP when the resources are so good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think those are evolving or kind of becoming something of the past, so I think what you are doing is really like the next version of what an EAP program is supposed to be doing, but it's drilling down what each organization needs and finding the tools that are going to help them, because every organization is different. But like I said, everybody's fighting battles that you know nothing about, and you expect someone to show up and be 100%. They might be going through a divorce. They might have something going on with their kids, their spouse, financial problems, everything else going on in the world. And then you expect them to come to work and be 100% every day, all the time. And it fortunately just doesn't work that way. So it looks like Lucy, I did speak to HR and I was suspended at work after they denied my ADA. So that was...
I came up with the HR Avenger, David, because I'm making this speaking, as a business thing up. And again, back to wanting to empower HR professionals, right? By conquering their limiting beliefs. Superheroes don't become superheroes by giving in to limiting beliefs.
Right.
And they just take action, and wanting that HR Avenger, was what I came up with. Again, making it up. But when I hear getting suspended around an ADA, and PTSD, I just want the address and the name of your supervisor. But that was my old life. But that's how I feel. That's how I feel.
Yeah. So you talked about that Saturday where it really, you conquered voices in your head, and you conquered things that you might not have ever been able to overcome. So was that really the turning point that you were able to find that motivation and strength to change your life? Or was there a combination of life events that really led up to that? Like, how did you get to that point where you just felt like, all right, I'm going to use this for good, and I'm going to help other people and other organizations and people in HR?
Yeah, that's a great question. The getting sentenced to psychiatry was 2006, right?
Okay.
And so I'd been on a journey in understanding how exercise and what I ate and the meds that I took, the meds that I don't take or things I don't put in my body, therapy, like all those things I grooved. And then it was summer of 2019. I was at a men's retreat for my church, and a pastor and my best friend shared that his father's anger had affected him, right? And it showed up in his life in later years, and how basically his dad taught him to love God, was a great father, and he had tears streaming down his face. And he said, and then I went to Crucible. And you can share the crucibleproject.org. What I would say about it is Christian, although you don't have to be Christian to go to these retreats. And there's many retreats like it. So I'm just sharing what he introduced me to. But I signed up a half hour later because it sounded like he had a lot of stuff. Yeah. And then he went to this place and reconciled the stuff, and it lives out of that power. And January, I went to Colorado. And what happened for me as I regressed with what my current problem was to finding out what now, I did not regress to my father's alcoholism, which certainly his drinking and the decisions that he made communicated to me that I didn't matter, that alcohol mattered more than me, right? I didn't go there because my dad had died 3 weeks before that, and I was good with my dad on that Saturday. But you know what did do it? the bullies that called me a loser, four eyes, geek, dork, that called me crazy because I had to see a nurse in middle school to get my medication. Those bullies were the messaging that programmed me for the rest of my life. And I confronted those bullies. So that was 2020. And what I can say is it took me about 2 years to really move into this next phase of speaking, which is how to conquer those beliefs and then adapt a possible mindset. But I was reluctant, David, because I'm very careful around toxic positivity. Being in the entertainment and commerce industry for 30 years, I've seen hundreds and hundreds of speakers, and we are struggling with real stuff. Yeah. Right. So to go from not even recognizing that to someone in the audience to you can climb any mountain and achieve, any aspiration or goal and live a life beyond your wildest dreams, I feel like is irresponsible when somebody can't get out of bed every day. So I've been reluctant to move into this, but I care about you all so much that I've just got to.
Yeah. It's, and my 3-word slogan to this whole thing is listen, share, inspire. So really what I have wanted to do with all of this is to bring folks on like yourself and listen to their stories, because you have some really impactful personal stories that you have shared just like others, and really share those experiences to help people that might be facing the same similar stuff and really help them be inspired and be a better person. So, you brought up, your father, and people that are watching that are fathers. It's kind of like you have a responsibility in your role at your job. That's, maybe an HR role. You are inspiring other people to be a better version at your company. Potentially, you're trying to help them in their career, make them a better version of themselves. But then if you are a father of children, growing up now with social media is just a completely different situation than you and I growing up with social media. Because I didn't grow up with social media. It wasn't really a thing until I was an adult so that, just imagine what you dealt with if you were in some capacity on some social media that, is really the main reason why kids are battling so much in the mental health space and suicide, because a lot of it is how they're perceived from other people in their day-to-day lives at school or whatever. And, a lot of that goes back to some social media that we didn't have growing up. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because fathers that are watching, obviously this month being men's mental, mental awareness month, it's so important, and finding the right resources, finding the right advice, the right help. So, what advice would you give someone who is struggling, or if someone watching does know somebody that is struggling, what could you share with them as like a first step to either getting help or, finding the right help for someone that they know, their loved one, their friends? Is there kind of some advice that you would give those kinds of folks watching?
Yeah, I want to at least acknowledge that it's not easy to reach out for help. Stigma is real. The idea that we'll be judged, it might even affect our job. So that makes it tough.
Right.
I was sentenced to psychiatry, but I knew I had serious mental illness in 2001, and the issues that it caused up until 2006 are profound. And barriers to treatment. I was unemployable. I worked here and there, but with bipolar, untreated bipolar, I got fired a lot of times. I didn't make it to 90 days to get health insurance. And so unemployable, I can't afford to pay for meds out of pocket.
Yeah.
But I was in recovery, and I think, some of the things I learned there is we find someone who is healthy, who lives the life that we want to live, and see if you can't get that person as a mentor. Again, it's not easy to go ask somebody to be your mentor, to be that for you. But I think at the end of the day, us speaking up to someone. That's the thing about EAPs. I mean, a lot of them nowadays have video visits you don't have to leave the house, right? You can set up a video visit, or, bare minimum is do an assessment online when it comes to mental illness. Just see where that assessment. I'm not telling you to be the person, if you're on here, I apologize, I'm making fun of you just a little bit, that person that gets on DocMD and diagnoses themselves, but just an assessment to kind of find out where you're at on a burnout scale or depression, and then take action. We got to speak up. We got to take action. And when it comes to people that we see that are hurting, we have to be brave and courageous. I don't think it's normal or common when you reach out to someone that you don't know that well and say, hey, I just wanted to see if there's any way that I can, help you, or anything that you'd like to share, where it went badly. It went poorly, and there's lives out there to save. And I'm not being dramatic about that.
Right. Whoops. So, you have traveled over the last few years. You've done a lot of SHRM conferences. Have there been any conferences where you went to speak that kind of stands out to you, whether it's somebody that came up and approached you after it and just really moved you, and just they either thanked you, they shared their story? Is there one that comes to mind with your traveling?
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I've been at SHRM conferences. I don't know. I'm not gonna say I count on one hand, but of the conferences I've been at for 30 years, it's rare to get a standing ovation. And a lot of times with the mental health speakers, they're a big time politician, entertainer, or they, climbed a mountain, or they did something, super special. I spoke to Twin Cities SHRM and got a standing ovation, simply for sharing my story. Most importantly, sharing what I learned from my story, and was able to pass on. But it is always, David, I spoke to an insurance company in Virginia, and when the room cleared out, and since I'm not a professional, well, I'm compensated to speak, but it's not a full-time endeavor quite yet. So I'm like setting my camera up, tearing my camera down. I'm like the AV guy and the speaker, where a man would stay till the room cleared out and would sit in the front row and tell me that he had bipolar disorder. I mean, those are the victories. Honestly, I'm not being, self-righteous when I say those really are the moments. I didn't get into speaking to get paid. But one of the most common recent ones, which meant the most, was I was speaking for the State Council for Indiana, SHRM. And I was talking about this particular topic. And if I got into some of the questions that I asked that audience, they're only going to hear that in a therapist's office. They certainly are not going to hear that in a keynote presentation. But I took the risk and I asked some questions, and she shared with me through the HOVA app, which is a conference app. I was the one in the front row bawling her eyes out, that your message was the message that I was supposed to hear today. I followed up with her and navigated her steps a bit, because if she was crying her eyes out in that talk, it meant she had experienced some serious trauma that was holding her back. So that was definitely number one.
Yeah. And I think for someone to have a situation, whether it's considered trauma or not, but people that have gone through the workplace landscape for the last 4 to 5 years, it's really changed, and it's going to continue to change and evolve. And so people have had to adjust. Like my board says, champions adjust. It's finding each person that sits and listens to your speaking topics. And I would assume most of them have had something go on in their lives over the last 4 or 5 years that really hit them when you are speaking on some of these topics. And so I think for men, having the willpower to speak up and find the right help is very difficult for a lot of men. And so, not that it's not, hard for women either, but I think just and I don't know the right statistic from men versus women with seeking help. You might have some of those statistics, but I would assume it's maybe higher for women. I don't know. Is that true? For
getting help? Yeah. Yep. And you think about males across all cultures, Black communities, Hispanic communities. I mean, these are men that have got to be tough and fight through it. One of my favorite movies is Central Intelligence with The Rock and Kevin Hart. It's a anti-bullying messaging, but The Rock mentions therapy for Kevin Hart, and he goes, "No, we go to barbershops. We watch barbershop." So just an idea of stigma being baked into this movie. But men for sure.
Yeah, and I think, like you talked about nutrition, you talked about stress management and depression, anxiety. I think the more and more that this conversation and this topic's talked about, I'm hopeful, and I would say you are too, that there are going to be more people that offer this kind of service and what you do and help individuals and organizations, because everyone doesn't have a personal trainer. Everyone doesn't have a personal nutritionist, therapist, and all of those things are really important. And some people do take it serious and think that, yeah, my mental health, my physical health, and what I put in my body, what foods I eat, and everything is so important from an overall health perspective. It's not like you can go to a therapist and over whatever period of time everything's going to be perfect. It's how to navigate through where there's really some room for improvement to make yourself a better version, whether it's what a therapist can do, somebody that, if you want to lose weight and you want to be more confident in how you look, your image, if you're 200 pounds overweight, obviously a therapist isn't going to probably help you with that. So I'm hopeful that there are more people that are going to see this as a need, because it's just, I think, it's going to become a more and more important topic, especially for organizations to focus on. When someone's like, "Oh, we offer an EAP program," that's great. But like you said, it's not utilized. It's something that just kind of checks the box, and it's not really going to do a whole lot. And so having resources like you for organizations, I think, will be super, super important. So what future speaking engagements do you have in case people are watching, that they can potentially see you in action live?
Yeah, it's great. Thank you for asking that. I do want to offer some value around what you were just saying. I read a lot. It's probably one of the biggest things I've done since the beginning of 2022 is read at least 10 pages of a professional personal development book a day. So I've read some amazing books. When I was in California for 2 years, 2015 to 2017, for a bit of time, I was a personal trainer, certified for Equinox Gym. And one of the things they suggested was finding out whatever your wheelhouse was and then presenting on that particular thing. And I had been a power lifter. I'd played college football, but exercise for mental health was what it was. And look, the benefits just for 20 minutes of moderate exercise are profound, right? Regulates our sleep, helps us get deeper and better sleep, regulates cortisol, and that's the stress hormone. Leads to the dopamine reward system and endorphins, which is the natural painkiller, and happy chemicals. We all know what we need to do, right? But we're more burnt out than ever and unhealthier than ever. And recently I read 2 books, The Mind Diet and This Is Your Brain on Food. And I just brain fog and memory and energy levels. And I'm like, am I getting older? I mean, what is this? How can I improve this? And here's the deal. 2 books, 600 and some pages in 2 days. It's the same 25 foods, y'all. It's the same foods: berries, nuts, olive oil, omega-3s. I cannot overstate how important it is to eat right. And then with exercise, I mean, who wants to do it? Nobody got time for that, right? But we'll watch every episode of Yellowstone in a weekend or Game of Thrones, but we won't take time to exercise. So you hit on it. Confidence, self-esteem, right? I just wanted to start exercising earlier this year consistently. I had read Atomic Habits 1.5 years before that, right? To be disciplined, you have to be disciplined. It's so annoying. Inspiration and motivation come after action, right? So I've got to take action, right? So I start by putting my shoes out the night before, right? I go to the gym for 2 minutes, even though I don't feel like it. And then maybe the next time it's for 3 or 4. I do things that I like to do, like swimming or shooting basketball on the basketball court, right? We take these small steps. And what happens is we get healthy. You want to talk about obesity rates and things like that, but all of them tie into the type of parent we are, right? When we take care of ourselves, it's net positive for everyone. And it starts with exercise, and it starts with eating right. And then the last thing you had said therapy might not help around the physical part, but the reality of it is there are so many people of us that have these limiting beliefs, these childhood wounds, this trauma, and we say we're not even worth the self-care that we need, or we give up before we try because we're going to fail anyway. I think it all matters, but the least we can do is clean out the fridge, put in the healthier foods. Let me tell you, Greek yogurt, berries, some walnuts, and a little bit of honey, some chia seeds is better, tastes better for me now than ice cream. And it's so much more productive for us. So
it's funny you say that. I just went through a 2-week flush, and my gut health is way better. And so I now know what chia seeds are, and having these shakes and being on a strict diet, a strict meal plan for 2 weeks. It's incredible. I've never done it. My wife, that's some of her work is in supplements training. So I got connected to one of her health coaches, and she put me on a plan, and I was like, all right, let's see what we can do. Drink 2 gallons of water a day. And it is amazing. So if anyone hasn't done a 2-week flush, find somebody that you feel like can help you down that path. And just from a nutrition standpoint, like you said, it's incredible what some of those little things can do. And people that crave sugar, those kinds of things, just it's well worth finding something that you can improve. I did want to bring this up because you probably spoke a little bit about it, Michael, but this 35-day challenge, I'm going to scan this because I want to bring it up myself. So anybody that is watching, I would bring this up and go through this workbook that Michael has put onto his website, because this is a 35-day self-care challenge. So it's November 4th. You start this and you could be right before the holidays, just in a much better
place.
So it's journaling 3 things you are grateful for each day. Do 90 seconds of box breathing per day, which what's box breathing?
So I learned about it through the Navy SEALs who use it in battle to de-escalate the anxiety that they have currently. You're going to breathe in, and you're going to breathe in so you expand that rib cage, and you're going to breathe in through your nose as much air as you can for a count of 4. You're going to hold at the top for 4, and then you're going to breathe out of your mouth all of that air for a count of 4, and you're going to hold at a count of 4. And listen, to a man or woman on this podcast, I promise you, you do it and you will instantly feel better. Instantly.
So you do that for 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Read 10 pages of a book per day, professional or personal. Love it. Do 20 minutes of moderate exercise each day. Obviously, 10,000 steps a day is what people say is great. Drink 10 8-ounce glasses of water per day, which I try to stay up on that. And make or maintain 1 healthy dietary adjustment each day. So there you go.
And to you had asked a question earlier about, what can someone do to get started? And the truth is we got to take contrary actions. A lot of the things that we don't want to do, especially in the recovery space when I'm dealing with an addict or new client, is whatever it is you don't want to do, you've got to do. You got to go to that meeting. You got to talk to the sponsor. You got to work a step. You just have to take contrary actions. And the why. I mean, we got to win the day. So pick a habit, pick a goal, any habit, any goal, right? And come up with some incremental steps. And it doesn't have to be to climb a mountain. Maybe it's just to lose 25 pounds, right? And whatever that is, you break it down into small steps. If you want to read a professional personal development book, you start with Atomic Habits, in my opinion. And then make one day to day. Right? Get off this podcast and say, today's going to be the day. I'm going to make today. And then you take small steps, you be consistent, and you win every day.
What was the book you said? Atomic
Habits, top 50 list. Every list you look at, you're going to find Atomic Habits.
Atomic Habits. It's great. So for those who scan that 35-day challenge workbook, highly suggest looking at that. You can look at everything that Michael is living and breathing every day in his work and passion at hravenger.com. Amazing content. Some of the programs that you are focusing on is An Exceptional Leader Cares, Identify, Inquire, and Intervene, Extreme Mental Health Makeover, and Leadership Reimagined were some of them that you had on your website. So
yeah, and I'm currently right now building out Identify, Inquire, Intervene for an HR education network,
okay.
HREN, and there'll be a booklet with it and everything. I'm teaching it to 300 people from the Gulf Coast Community Services Association who deal with impoverished communities and really tough cases. So I'm doing that, and I do appreciate you asking when I'm speaking again. And honestly, I'll share this. I never use this platform as a sales opportunity, but you probably are familiar with, maybe not, Haystack ID, but they're a company that a guy I played rugby with works for a company like yours, David, and he introduced me to an HR professional with Haystack ID, global company, and they wanted me to do a monthly mental health thing, and I was given license about what I created, and I created a really good lesson plan and takeaways in the works, right? Much like a presentation. And I don't know, when I logged in that morning, it was on my heart to, and you can look on my website, sachet emotions: sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, tender. I decided to lead off with a little bit about my story and why the stuff is important, and to get everybody to check in around how they feel. And I cannot tell you the response and feedback. Like, first of all, they were sharing things where I was like, I don't even know if I would share that, right? They don't know each other in this big corporate company. But then the feedback from everybody else about the bravery and the courage, and all I did was facilitate a discussion, much like I've facilitated many addiction groups in my career. And now I do that. I'll model that and get organizations started on that so that they can have these types of meetings where people can speak up about what they're going through.
Wow. Yeah, it's incredible. I'm a huge proponent in all of this work that you're doing. So I really appreciate your time, Michael, and I think there's a whole lot to be done. So just hopefully in the future we can reconnect and find other ways to just really get your message out there. So do you have any SHRM conferences that you'll be going to over the next few months?
Well, I'm regular at SHRM Baldwin County, which is awesome, in Alabama. But I've applied to, you just calls for presentations to SHRM Virginia. And by doing that, I've been pretty successful getting SHRM opportunities. But right now, I have none in the spring. So, but that's kind of what I'm doing now is canvassing the industry, looking for opportunities to speak.
Awesome. Well, good. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up here? Any final comments or just?
Yeah, just do what you can to get through the trauma, your past, bury dead yesterdays. Give your past a eulogy, and step into this moment right now. And when I said make one day today, identify that habit, identify that goal. Take a look at how that would show up in your life with your loved ones and work and all of that. And, when I decided to get myself together consistently, it was leading up to my talk with the Gulf Coast Community Association. I did a keynote and a presentation in July. And though I'm not typically extrinsically motivated, I knew that they mattered. 300 burnt out people dealing with the worst cases. The least I could do was go for a walk in the morning, throw some weights around in the evening, and eat strawberries and walnuts to step on that stage authentically. And I want you all to do the same thing. What is your why? Who can you help? And what do you need to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And next Monday, my topic is about burnout with my guest.
Perfect. So I'll be there.
Burnout is the next topic in this month. So, Michael, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate your time and insights and sharing your stories that are very personal and things that you have gone through over your career and your childhood. And I think it's just amazing what you're doing. We need more people like you, and just keep fighting the good fight, my friend. So hopefully you have a great rest of your day. Have a great month. And hopefully we'll talk real soon. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Like I said, you can visit Michael's website, hravenger.com, get all his content and everything that he is focusing on right now. So, all right, Michael. Well, thanks again. And we'll talk to you real soon. And thanks everybody for tuning in. And we'll talk to everyone real soon.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.